It looks like a monster from another age, an old Soviet tank, smothered in welded doors, pipes, and broken metal. Inside, there's no glory, just soldiers sleeping on ration boxes, bottles wired to walls so they don't rattle, and a single note taped to the driver's panel. Keep hatch open in travel mode. This isn't innovation. It's desperation turned into armor. A rolling coffin designed not to fight, but to shield men for 10 borrowed seconds. Yet, inside these ugly shells, Ukrainian engineers uncovered clues to the next generation of war. Keep watching, because the truth hidden inside these tanks will leave you stunned. Act 1. The Trap and the Drones. The day begins in a hush. Fog clings to the fields while Ukrainian combat engineers, faces streaked with mud, finish their night's work. Mines are disguised beneath crushed grass and loose soil, strung together like nerves in a living organism. Nearby, FPV pilots sit in a dugout, testing batteries, taping charges, cleaning lenses. A reconnaissance drone hangs overhead, quiet as a thought. Engines growl on the horizon. A Russian tank nudges forward, a dark shape sliding out of the mist. Confident, it cuts across a field, leaving the safety of the road. Whoever commands it believes that off-road means unpredictable, and unpredictable means safe. They are wrong. The explosion is blunt and immediate. The left track bites a mine and the hull heaves. The crew is dizzy, ears ringing, routines fighting panic. 30 seconds. That is the window the Ukrainians have drilled for months. In that half-minute, the FPV pilot arms, rises, and points the nose at the open hatch. The crew scrambles. The drone arrives. The charge detonates inside the turret. Ammunition cooks off. Smoke and flame pour upward like a black flower. A machine designed to dominate becomes wreckage in under a minute. A second tank reverses hard, its commander slapping the jammer switch. The electronic warfare set throws static into the air, clawing at control signals. The FPV feed tears and stutters. Then the pilot trims, shifts frequency, and presses on. The drone vaults a hedgerow, darts under a power line, and spears the tank's rear quarter where the armor is thin. A flash and a roil of smoke. This crew does not escape. Infantry scatter. One soldier drops his rifle the instant he hears the insect whine of another FPV. Others clutch shotguns, their only real counter at close range, hoping a blast of pellets will swat the drone before it finds a faceplate or a neck seal. They hide in doorways, behind broken walls, inside the skeletons of houses. The sky hums. The battlefield has changed. Fear no longer rides on tracks. It flies. Act 2. Panic on the ground. The new rule is cruel and simple. If a vehicle is seen, it is targeted. If it is targeted, it is hunted. If it is hunted, it is hit. Infantry who once trusted armor now treat it like a lightning rod. They no longer bunch around a tank's skirts. They spread. They crouch. They listen. Platoons improvise drone spotters with binoculars and cheap radio scanners. Squad leaders rehearse drone drills, the way they once rehearsed gas mask drills. Freeze, listen, scatter, conceal. When the buzz is distant, they move. When it grows, they vanish. The line between courage and survival blurs. Shotguns are slung across tactical vests. Spare batteries ride where grenades used to. One private mutters that he can taste the electricity in the air. Another wraps tape around his ear pro and says nothing. In this war, sound is prophecy. The faintest whir can be a warning. The briefest whine, a verdict. Men who never feared tank guns flinch at a wasp-like tone. It is not cowardice. It is arithmetic. The drone sees, therefore it strikes. The strike comes, therefore it kills. Commanders adapt. Routes are chosen for tree cover and roof lines. Vehicles sprint from shadow to shadow. The tempo of movement changes from columns and schedules to bursts and pauses, a heartbeat of caution that feels like hesitation but is really survival. Act 3. Russia's strange answer. The turtle tank. Under this pressure, Russian units begin to improvise. They pull T-62s from storage, tanks built when astronauts still walked on the moon. Welders stitch scrap metal over the hulls, doors from electrical cabinets, corrugated sheets, the lids of forgotten machines. The turret is pinned or welded. The main gun becomes a hood ornament on a bunker that moves. Inside, the racks for shells are empty. Optics are dark. The driver stares through a slit no wider than his palm. The crew calls it a turtle because it feels like living inside a shell. Safe from small teeth, blind to bigger jaws. The real upgrade isn't steel, it's signal. Boxy jammers bloom with antennas and cables. A generator, lashed to the rear like a pack on a mule, feeds the appetite for power. The mission changes. This isn't a breakthrough tank, it's a taxi. It brings soldiers close under a shaky umbrella of electronic warfare and tries to leave before the sky takes notice. It is less a weapon than a moving parapet, a compromise between fear and necessity. Ukraine captures one nearly intact. Engineers swarm it, tracing wires, photographing welds, logging serial plates scavenged from farm equipment. The verdict is plain. This is not innovation born from strength. It is improvisation born from attrition. Act 4. Inside the monsters. What they find in the captured turtle tanks is squalid and revealing. Sleeping bags stuffed into corners, rations wedged under welds, plastic bottles wired to the wall so they don't rattle. A small gas burner, blackened from use. A paper note taped above the driver's panel. Keep hatch open in travel mode. The electronics are a patchwork. A modern radio is spliced into a loom of ancient Soviet field wire. Connectors that never met in their design lives meet now with solder and hope. The generator's exhaust stains the added armor with soot. In some tanks, cameras are glued to the hull and wired to thrift store displays inside. A nervous system bolted on after birth. The jammers work, sometimes brilliantly. FPVs lose link and plummet like gulls with broken wings. But the cost is paid in heat, fuel, and attention. Engines overheat. Alternators grieve under constant load. Crews spend more time nursing voltage than scanning terrain. Every hour the jammers run is an hour the tank becomes easier to hear, easier to smell, easier to find. The greatest flaw, though, is vision. With the turret locked and the periscope secluded, the crew drives like a man with his hands over his eyes. In open country, that means ditches and mines. In towns, that means walls and wires. More than one turtle tank has died not by missile, but by misjudgment. Wedged or drowned, helpless under a sky full of cameras. Act 5. Advanced turtles and case study. Not all turtles are crude. Some are built on T-72 hulls and look almost deliberate. They carry mine rollers, thick side plates, and heaped rebar forming a crude roof. Reactive armor bricks stud the flanks in a patchwork. 4 cameras feed a set of flat screens. The starters whine. The engines catch. The jammers light up like a small city at night. One such tank becomes the subject of whispered respect. Over several days, it survives more than 40 FPV attempts. 32 drones are jammed into the dirt. 8 find metal. They dent the rebar, scorch paint, shear off a bracket. The crew returns to base shaking and laughing in that dry way soldiers laugh when something should have killed them and somehow did not. Mechanics replace a roller, weld a seam, and send it back out. The kill, when it comes, is not cinematic. A small droppable munition snaps a track roller. The tank slews and stops. The crew calls for a tow that never arrives. Minutes later, a second FPV angles from above, threads the cage, and explodes where the welded shell meets the original roof. Fire first licks, then takes. The cabling melts. The generator coughs and dies. The crew does not emerge. Ukrainian engineers record everything. Cable gauges, jammer antennas, bolt patterns, the placement of a cheap inverter zip-tied to a bracket that once held a machine gun can. The notebook reads like archaeology. Layers of fear preserved in metal. Act 6. Why turtles exist. Russia's armor problem. The turtle is a symptom of a deeper shortage. BMP-2s and BMP-3s were meant to be nimble cavalry for infantry, but their armor is thin. MTLBs, built as tractors with a turret, are thinner still. Against Bradleys with 25mm cannons and modern optics, Russian vehicles are outclassed. Against FPV drones that cost less than a washing machine, they are mortals. Ukraine's Bradleys tell a different story. Videos show them shrugging off mine blasts, limping home with torn skirts and blackened wheels, crews alive and swearing. A Bradley that takes a hit may still fight. A BMP that takes the same hit becomes a memorial. So Russian commanders raid long-term storage. They pull T-62s that smell of grease and dust, start engines with smoke that looks like surrender, and hand them to welders with a mandate. Make them live. The result is not a new doctrine. It is a stopgap. A steel umbrella that covers a sprint from tree line to trench line. There is a grim logic to it. If a jammer defeats most drones most of the time, then some transports will arrive, and some soldiers will live. In a war of inches and hours, some can be a plan. Act 7. Limits. Power, vision, frequency, fire. Electronic warfare does not bend to will. It obeys physics. Coverage is finite. Bands are finite. Power is finite. Ukrainian pilots change frequencies mid-flight. Teams launch from multiple directions to saturate a single bubble of protection. The percentage jammed falls as the complexity rises. Power is tyranny. Generators drink fuel, belts snap, alternators fail, cables rub through and arc. A tank designed for a certain electrical load now carries a second nervous system. Commanders schedule not just fuel and ammunition, but kilowatts and battery swaps. A vehicle expected to sprint becomes a vehicle that must idle to live. Vision remains the oldest weakness. Blind drivers bump into the war. They clip corners, tangle in wire, nose into ditches and skyline on berms. Hatches that should be closed are opened because fear of crashing outweighs fear of shrapnel. The welded cannon offers no help. The turret cannot traverse, so the tank cannot engage. It can only arrive, not fight. Finally, there is the hard ceiling of modern anti-tank weapons. A 2-pound FPV is a scalpel. A javelin is a guillotine. When Western stocks flow, the calculation changes. The turtle that defeats a dozen drones will still die to a top-attack missile that never cared about cages or scrap. Act 8. Tactics evolve on both sides. Neither side is static. Ukrainian units pair FPVs with artillery, timing bursts to mask the approach of drones. They practice frequency fanning, launching multiple aircraft on staggered channels. They coordinate with reconnaissance teams that mark jammers by their noise on the spectrum, then walk fire onto the source. Russian units answer by nesting jammers, truck-mounted sets for a wide bubble, vehicle-mounted sets for a tight shield, man-portable sets to guard dismounts. They experiment with decoy emitters and cheap balloons that carry noise. They fit shotguns into turret rings and bolt mesh over optics. They rehearse rapid dismounts under EW cover. 10 seconds to jump, 5 to sprint, 4 to hit dirt. The battlefield becomes a conversation in electricity. Every move has a sound in the ether. Every sound invites a reply. What once was decided by steel and armor thickness is now decided by timing and bandwidth, by who hears whom first. Act 9. What the engineers learned. The captured turtles teach in detail. Ukrainian teams map common weld lines and weak seams. They learn which cage geometries channel blasts into armor, and which create funnels that help drones. They catalog jammer models, their effective ranges, and the bands they favor. They design counter routes in software, approach vectors that exploit known blind arcs. One report notes that many turtles run consumer-grade cameras glued to the hull. Another that generators are often undersized and mountings fail under vibration. A third that crews stash lithium batteries in unsafe bays where shrapnel turns power into fire. The engineers are not merely gloating. They are building checklists. Every lesson shortens a future fight. These findings feed back to the front. FPV pilots receive briefings with photos of welds and cages, annotated with arrows. Aim here, avoid there. Sappers change mine spacing to trap rollers instead of tracks. Artillery forward observers aim for generators because, once the jammer dies, the turtle is just a shell waiting for teeth. Act 10. The Future of Armored Warfare. It is tempting to laugh at a tank wearing scrap. It is wiser to look twice. The turtle is an artifact of transition. It admits that drones have changed the battlefield faster than doctrine, and that electronic warfare is no longer a niche, but a pillar. Future armor will not copy the turtle's ugliness, but it will copy its priorities. Expect factory-fitted counter-FPV systems, layered jammers, automated 360-degree cameras, and active protection that hunts small threats. Expect remote turrets that never need a hatch open. Expect logistics that plan fuel and electrons with equal care. Some argue the age of tanks is ending, perhaps. But armies still need something that moves with infantry under fire, crosses mud, carries weight, and absorbs punishment. Maybe the future tank looks less like a knight and more like a shield with wheels. Maybe the turtle is a crude sketch of a design the world has not yet drawn clean. For now, the lesson is humility. The sky is full of watching eyes. The ground is full of hidden teeth. And the distance between the two is where all the noise lives. The turtle tank is desperation given form. A relic plated in fear, humming with electricity, rolling toward a horizon owned by drones. It is ugly because the battlefield is ugly. It is slow because the future arrived fast. Scrap metal and signal jammers, rebar and radios, blankets and batteries. This is the vocabulary of a war that punishes certainty. The turtle will not win a parade. It may not even survive a week. But for a squad under a gray sky, 10 seconds of shelter can be the difference between a story and a name on a wall. Is this the future of armored warfare, or its last chapter? Watch the sky, listen for the wasp song, and decide for yourself. If you learned something here, like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next untold truth from the front lines.